Phones, at least most of them. Okay, I'm going to call this work session to order at 7:35 p.m. This is a work session, so it is relatively low key on rules, but we do still try to obey the basic structure of Robert's rules. Members of the council, there's a work session agenda before you. Are any changes required to that agenda? Seems awfully quiet, so I'll assume that means no. We don't need a vote or a motion or anything like that. Councilman Belengua, did you have anything to change?
No,
Okay.
I was gonna say no.
Okay. Well, with that then, let's move along on, well, are there any conflicts of interest for items on the agenda? Any of you have something going on and that creates a generally financial conflict of interest with anything?
No.
Just invested in a early voting system company or something like that. Okay. So let's move on. First item on the agenda is a presentation of proposed fiscal year 2025 roadway improvement projects, and this is from Pannoni.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor. We're going to have introductory comments from Director Lewis, and she'll also introduce Kim from Pannoni. So, Director Lewis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the community and staff. It's my pleasure to introduce or reintroduce Kim Adams from Pannoni. She's one of the towns, or Pannoni is one of the town's on-call engineers. This is actually Ms. Adams's third year to develop the annual road improvement program. It was actually on her advice that the town acquired and used robotics software to collect, store, and rate road conditions, from which the annual list of road improvement projects was developed. This year's list of projects actually includes input from the Walk Bike Drive committee members of the public through the town's new safety email address, and reported concern, as well as from DPW field staff, those things that they've observed over the last several months. Ms. Adams will present the proposed projects for FY 2025. We invite your input on the list of proposed projects, as well as any projects you'd like to see added to the list. At the November legislative meeting, staff will seek mayor and council authorization for the town manager to sign a task order contract with Pannoni to design the roadway improvements. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Adams. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor, town manager, council persons. Thank you for having me tonight. As Ivy mentioned, this is my third year presenting to you. We have had quite a, actually, let me start sharing here. Share. Okay, and do you all see the slideshow? I'm going to start sharing.
Yes.
Okay. Do you see the slide with the notes or?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We do. You know how to take care of that.
I thought I had fixed that, but I have most of my notes beside me anywhere. So you might just see the slide ahead of us. So hopefully just ignore the right side.
If you click display settings, yes, that's how you switch it up top. Yep.
Yeah, she actually achieved that earlier today.
There it is.
I know, right? I forgot that quick. Okay, so here we go. Thanks again, everybody. So let me go ahead and get started here. We have a great program, and hopefully I can go through the process and let you know about the program objectives and our selection process, which has generally been the same since fiscal year 2022. Most of the main objective is definitely to improve road safety. by doing upgrades such as resurfacing, traffic calming, ADA improvements, a few storm drain cleanings and things like that, all to help upgrade the performance of your infrastructure system. And we also want to optimize pavement life. So back in 22, I did recommend a program called Robotics. For those of you who haven't heard of that, it is a asset management tool that is great for smaller municipalities because it is fairly low in cost to get you the data that you need. I do want to remind everybody at the town that you do have a link to access this data. Ivy, maybe I'll re-forward that link to you. I kind of re-forward it every year just to let you know that, folks can access the data.
Okay.
But being that it was done in 2022, what you're going to see is like a photo of how the roads looked back then. So since then, we've probably done at least, I guess, 25 to 30 roadways and other improvements. So one of these times, you probably want to go back and recapture to include everything. So what you're looking at here down at the bottom to the right is an actual screenshot from the robotics program. And what happened was there were some red highlights, which means that the roadways were in poor condition. And the town really didn't have that many poor condition, but you did have several of the yellow, which is like fair. Might have some distresses in the pavement, might have a couple of potholes here and there, some cracking, and things like that. And usually the green are the better improvements. So, and every now and then you might see a little spot of yellow. That means that's probably a location where the asset management devices caught some deterioration. So our goal is to get the town all green, and then that means that everything would be in a good or better position. So that's a quick glimpse of the robotics. So going through that, we do our initial selections, and then we go out and our engineers field verify just to make sure that maybe the roadway wasn't resurfaced by a utility or the roadway didn't get worse. So we actually go out in the field and inspect a lot of these roadways, and we figure out what needs to be done. So in that, I didn't mention maybe the 3 up there, roadway rating 3 or more. So it's on a range of 1 to 5, with 3 being the yellow highlight, and that's kind of average to fair. So we also, in addition to robotics, we also receive, recommendations from town staff, from the Walk Bike Drive Committee this year, from other emails, and then we go out and we produce data sheets where after we've done inspection of the locations, we go out and provide, what we noticed, what our recommendation is, and then we prepare like a preliminary estimate. And I'm aware that the town has some on-call contractors. So this year, instead of using typical numbers that may have been used, say, for state projects or county projects, we actually input some of the numbers from the on-call contractors. So over the past 2 cycles, here's a list of most of the streets that we had did. We had a couple of additions that got added to it, but you can see we some of these streets were resurfaced. We added separated bike lanes. We performed base repairs. We did traffic control, such as installing speed humps and speed monitors, solar operated, yes. And we improved plenty of ADA ramps, installed some crosswalks, and so on. You'll see some pictures that even since 2022, to the streets that were recently done, a couple of the standards had even been upgraded since then. So probably in your packet, you already have this list of items that were numbered 1 through 9, and an estimate of where the improvements that we identified so far, where the fee would be for a contractor for that. And remember, we kind of pulled from the on-call contractors, so probably have to solicit them. We'll give them plan sheets. That's where the engineered part comes into play, and then they would give you a more exact number. But that's pretty much it based on the quantities that we came up with. So the first item on the list was, excuse me, 54th Avenue with sidewalk maintenance project over here to the upper left. There was a lot of cracking, a lot of disjointed panels that were creating tripping hazards. So we went out, inspected, and counted, and found out that there were a number of cracked panels. So we recommended to replace a lot of those, maybe to shave down near the joints. Excuse me again. But one thing I want to mention with this one is that it may be good once we get going to coordinate with the contractor, because sometimes grinding is actually more expensive than repairing the actual panel. So we'll coordinate with that. Also, here's another location at 5807 Cleveland. It's actually a referral, and you can look at the spreadsheet, kind of item 7, for another block that'll need to be repaired. Okay, I was like, it wasn't advancing. There's also been recommendations for speed humps. We've installed a few down at the lower left-hand corner. This is actually one in Riverdale Park Station. This is an example actually of a speed cushion. And I say that sometimes if you have fire trucks or buses that need to traverse through the street, we would just need to take a look at what's going on during the day and see if it would be beneficial to have speed humps or speed cushions, or a combination of both. So we'll be looking from Spring Lane all the way to Riverdale Road, with the intention of adding at least 1 to 3 speed humps or a speed cushion pattern in there. While we were out investigating, and this was actually after we were leaving some of the streets that we had recommended for resurfacing, our engineers actually noticed several pedestrians walking dogs, and a few folks riding bicycles just in the middle of the day, and their sidewalk, partial disconnected sidewalk on 51st. So we looked at it, and if you look at the upper right corner, it's a pretty wide street, and we feel that we could, as a quick build, add an on-street walking pathway. The one you see, the photo you see in the middle, is actually one that was taken down in DC, and I believe the one in the lower left corner, that might be Hyattsville, but this artist, who pretty much does a lot of the painted walkways in Hyattsville, his firm is called Graham Projects. He does walkways and painted bump outs, all, I say, probably between Maryland, Pennsylvania, DC. So this would be a good location, especially with the vicinity of the park, in order to do a quick build on street sidewalk. Throughout this past year, there were a number of sinkholes. It wasn't as easy to tell how they were formed. We had our geotech take a look at them. We had our highway engineer look at them. It could have been the soil underneath. If you look at the one in the middle, we had one of our engineers actually stick a tape measure down there. So the red outline is actually how big the sinkhole goes. So it's not just the diameter that you might see on the street. We try to get as much information as we can to make sure that we block out the whole area and make sure that we're getting all the deterioration underground also. And I believe you also got a list of locations for crosswalks. So throughout last year and this year, we located a number of intersections that either, and you can even, like I mentioned earlier, one in the top left corner, this was one of our 2022 streets. And this at the time was actually an upgrade because it didn't have any crosswalk at all. So we installed a standard crosswalk. But we believe, it's an intention of the town and, Ivy or John, correct me if I'm wrong, to install Continental now and just about every location that we do install crosswalks in the town. So we have a fairly large list that either need to be redone or new locations where we could add Continental crosswalks. The same thing with curb ramps. We did plenty of curb ramps in 2022. And, as standards change, when it comes to ADA accessibility, there were guidelines that were produced or revised in 2010, the regular Americans with Disability Act. And now we even have some upgrades that we might take a look at due to new guidelines that are out. So I know there's usually some question about type B and type A, or type A and type B. The contractors, the on-call contractors, actually have quantities to reinstall or install both type A and type B. So type E ramps are pretty much have a flare. So we have the first two at the top to the left, they have a flare on the edge. And that flare is usually due to there's a grass strip between the sidewalk and the street. So we're able to flare it up. Here's another one in the middle with a small flare on it. And these are actually look like they're pretty close to, they were able to get the site conditions to match pretty close to the standard. As well as this one all the way to the right at the top, type B. And I don't know if I don't think I can zoom in, but this one also is another one that was installed very close to the type B standard. Sometimes we cannot get the conditions perfect in order to do it exactly to standard. So that's when we might have to do special designs. A lot of the special designs might involve a curb that we might have to put on the side of the ramp. So to miss a manhole or pole or something like that in order to install the ADA ramp. Two locations that we had identified as resurfacing, 48th and 49th Street. And we came through a couple years ago and we did a lot of the base repairs because there were like huge potholes, and this was one of the poor condition streets. So we came through about 2 years ago, did the base repairs, did some of the crack sealing, and that we did that on a few streets. But now we can go and all we need to do is kind of mill 2 inches off and replace 2 inches in order to bring those 2 streets up to good, excellent condition, especially since the majority of the base repairs were already done. But this time we'd also be able to come through and maybe address some of the handicap ramps or install some of the crosswalks where we can. It was a suggestion that we received an email from one of the Walk, Bike, Drive committee members. And one of the suggestions was to daylight some of the intersections. And what that means, pretty much, I took this right from the email, is to provide a better sight distance to see both pedestrians that may be standing on the corner or to see cars that may be coming perpendicular to the driver. So we've identified a couple of locations where we could do this either by painting the corner. That's kind of the quick build, is to install flex posts or striping like you see in this one to the right. Again, this is an example project that Graham, actually his name is actually Graham, but it's called Graham Projects. Here's a intersection that he did where he actually, there are flex posts that you can't see outlining the white pavement markings, but within the flex post, he also painted it. So Here's a couple of locations where we feel that this would be beneficial to make sure that the cars do not park on the corner, or at least 20 to 25 feet from the corner to provide that sight distance. Rhode Island was also identified as another location that could use speed humps. So here's an example of Taylor Avenue. So this is a full speed hump, not a speed cushion. But just to let you know, the approximate size, we put the detail in here. We're still, for a lot of these, for all of them, when it comes to ADA ramps, speed humps, crosswalks, things like that, we're pretty much using Prince George's County and Maryland standards. So it's kind of universal. But here's some of the typical signage that you would need to put in also. So just remember, if you're installing the speed hump, it also includes pavement markings, it includes signage and things like that. We have traffic engineers that any location that is recommended for speed humps, our traffic engineer would go out and investigate, take a look at the traffic, and both 54th and Rhode Island. I mean, there's a good amount of traffic, but one thing that we want to make sure is that, you know, while folks are slowing down to go over the speed hump, that you're not building up a queue or things like that. So we don't think that any of the streets just on the initial field visits would, you know, cause a queue. So very likely that we'd be able to install the speed humps. There's other conditions, such as distance between speed humps or speed cushions, distance from driveways, things like that. So that's all a part of the engineering phase. So these pretty much outline numbers 1 through 9 in the handout. So I guess just wanted to open it up, see if anybody had any questions. Ivy, I think I covered everything, but if it's anything else you wanted me to talk about.
Oh, no, that was pretty thorough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Council members, do you have any questions for Ms. Adams?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Yang, go ahead.
I appreciate the presentation, and it's good to see, I think, examples of some of the things it can get for us non-professionals, hard to sort of envision what you're talking about. And so I appreciate the visuals as well. The first question I have is around the FY25 projects. And so I guess before I'll back up, I know you mentioned I think it was great that you're, using technology to sort of do an assessment of the roads. And you mentioned there's the 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the worst. Is that the best way to think about it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Other way around. Other way around.
Oh.
3 is
one
in the
be-
middle.
So
Yeah.
3 or more is like more being less
Getting
than.
better.
Okay. 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 Maybe I misread that then. Okay. And then I guess my question in terms of like for the FY25 projects, and maybe that's a question for Director Lewis. I understand the blend of some ramps, some sidewalks, some streets, some speed humps. For the streets themselves, was there were the ones particularly like number 3 as an example, some of the repair patchwork, was it just this street was a number 2 or 1 and that's why I got on the list, or it's just we're working through a longer backlog of streets that we've already determined that need to be repaired?
Yeah, so most of the ones that were in poor condition, and I do got to verify because I might be getting mixed up also, but the ones that were rated, you didn't have any that were ranked at the lowest at all.
Except for Maryland Avenue.
Right,
Obviously.
except for Maryland Avenue. We even recommended to do a concrete base on Maryland Avenue because of the traffic there. And also the other one that we took care of last year was 50th. That was the next worst condition that we had. But generally, most of them were 3s. This round, since a lot of those 3s were taken care of, I will go back to now this part of Rhode Island also. I don't know if we weren't really talking about this, but there is some deterioration here. And because we did the robotic study back in 2022, water. It's been a lot of rain. Water deteriorates the roadways even further. Some snow, ice, of course. So this was one where even though we were looking at it at Rhode Island Avenue, I didn't even mention this to you, Ivy, but Elizabeth mentioned it to me that, you know, there's a couple of spots that if we take care of those spots also, this part of Rhode Island Avenue will be functioning a lot better too. So we could talk about that one a little later or add it to this one. But yeah, that was just something that Liz told me today with regard to Rhode Island Avenue. So there's no huge there wasn't a huge backlog. 30 streets, you know, or 25 to 30 streets. What we've done so far, that took care of a lot of the backlog of the worst streets.
I only asked for you mentioned the robotics thing that you talked about was recent, or is that the one was done 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. Just
Yeah.
the 54th Avenue in the Purple Line neighborhood, especially, it's gone from being a two-way street to like a one-way in and out, or I should say a one-way street that became a two-way street in and out. And around that initial curve, I know the road quality is really bad, plus flooding, and lights, but you know, that's another here or there. That's another question. But I just would definitely flag that as an area that I think is in just the same, or if not worse shape than some of the other ones that have been mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, and I did, you know, recommend whether it's part of next year or whatever, but I would think that it is time to do another reevaluation using robotics. There's even in those 2 to 3 years, there's actually been other programs that have come out also that you know, can be quite effective, especially if you're trying to capture other items such as signage or sidewalks or things like that. This part of robotics, and I guess what made the cost for it so efficient was that it was just strictly roadway. So, you know, that could be another conversation, but we could definitely do a field visit of the 54th that you mentioned.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Smith, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While this slide is up, just to speak to this portion of Rhode Island Avenue, I'm hesitant to advocate for improvements along that stretch. Of course, something we should talk about, but in theory, there is imminent heavy construction happening on both sides of that street there, which would put heavy equipment and vehicles along that stretch of road. And I worry, and happy to hear that this from the experts here that it's not a valid concern, but I worry that we would spend a bunch of money doing those improvements and maintenance just for it to be torn up again in short order. Would also recommend that on our end, through the MUTSI committee or whatever the process would be for that some of the upgrades that need to happen to this stretch of road be part of a community benefit agreement with the developers, so we can explore that at the council, at the MUTSI committee. And then secondly, I just wanted to hear more about Maryland Avenue. I know that if I recall correctly, the case has been in the past that we could fix Maryland Avenue, but again, because of the heavy equipment that rolls over it, whatever money we spend on that, 6 months later, it would be in the same shape again. And just interested to hear more. I know Ivy, you mentioned something to do with concrete under there. Just what our thought process is there, what the sort of medium to long-term outlook is for getting Maryland Avenue in better shape. I know we're limited in what we can do, but would love to hear more.
Excuse me, Mr. Town Manager, are you going to address that question?
If I can address first Rhode Island, Councilmember Smith, thank you for bringing that up. We included that as a recommendation that came in from a resident. If you look on the table, we didn't even have a chance to determine the cost. That's something that came in just a few days ago. And so we wanted it to be on the table for discussion, but we share your concerns. As it relates to Maryland Avenue, I'll make a general comment. We need kind of a complete plan for how to address Maryland Avenue, as well as to then figure out the financing. You heard from Ms. Adams, the recommendation, because of the type of traffic, the heavy trucks and everything, is to actually have a concrete base. We also have the Wells Run Channel, and there's a lot there. So I'll say that it's on our radar, but we need to look at that not as a street maintenance project, but as a separate capital improvement project to address that stretch of road. It's going to take considerable funding, and it's more funding than we would have. And Kim, if you want to weigh in here, but it's more funding than we have in all these maintenance type projects added together. You're probably looking north of $500,000.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And because we also looked at, right now installing curbs, there'll probably be a lot of coordination that needs to happen before it's done too, because you have cars that park all along there. I mean, we on this road, we almost go out every year or even more just to take a look at it. So it's deteriorating fast. So yeah, funds, I would say by the time we get to it, 500,000 and above, but what would be needed, such as, installing curbs or inlets or stormwater management. Once you do a long stretch like that, the fee adds up.
Understood. Mr. Town Manager and Ms. Lewis, let's continue conversation discussing this and how, if at all, I can be helpful in trying to identify funding sources externally for that, because it's definitely, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here that it needs it, nor that it would require a lot of resources. One thing, I'm not sure if this helps with maintenance or not, but I'm going to use the opportunity. We're on the subject since Miss Adams, you brought it up. There are a number of vehicles along Maryland Avenue that are not so much parked as left. I'm fairly confident some of those are violating some of our rules about how we handle such vehicles. So I know town staff, Mr. Town Manager, have a wealth of priorities, and you guys do a great job with them. But if there is any time to address that, I would appreciate it.
I appreciate your comments, sir, and your understanding. I'll meet with the chief, and we'll take a harder look at that. I don't want to get too far off topic. There are some other complications along the Wells Run area there as it relates to redoing that roadway. And I'm just going to float an idea. I would have to do a lot of research, but the town may actually want to have some sort of a road improvement fee. Since the road is primarily utilized by heavy vehicles for just a number of properties there. And if the town needs to have some sort of a special base put in on this, more than we would have for a roadway, say in our residential areas, then having some sort of a road improvement fee, levying those affected properties may be something that the town wants to consider in the future. So we'll go ahead and do the research on the possibilities there.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I think that's a great idea. Ideally, we would put a weight restriction on traffic on that road, but any weight restriction would eventually say none of the businesses there can do business because they all use heavy trucks. So that's not really an option. So I think what you've suggested there is a really good idea, and would love to explore and discuss it more, and look forward to hearing more on the possibilities there.
We'll add it to our research list, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Additional council questions? Or Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure if Miss Adams have any idea about 54th Avenue, where people are speeding like crazy. So I don't know if she can go and inspect that place to see whether to get 2-speed hump over there. And number two, the train track near the farmers market. I think some of the bars over there need to be examined because when you are crossing on top there, some of the bars has moved from their positions. So I will like the town manager and others, even Miss Adam, to go and inspect that place and see what I'm talking about. Because it's too dangerous. Sometimes it's gonna deflate your tire. So that's the only thing I have for Miss Adams and the town manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to verify the limits that you were referring to with the folks speeding. If that's Riverdale, if it's Spring Lane to Riverdale, that portion was included in the
54th. It's actually 54th Avenue between Riverdale Road and Spring Lane. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, okay, yep. Now as far as the train track issue, I believe is that a part of another
Town
project?
center. It's a town center. I wasn't aware of that issue before today. So council member, can you elaborate a little more about what's happening at the town center? Or the train tracks?
I mean, are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I see like in the middle of the train track where like when you want to cross, right? Whether you come in from Rhode Island or you come in from Riverdale side to go to Rhode Island, you see the train track there, there's some iron bars over there, they loose.
So he's
Yeah,
talking about
sometimes-
the railroad crossing on
Yes,
Queens
the
Center.
rail crossing, that's what I'm talking. When you step on it, sometimes it go down.
Yes,
when-
yeah,
when
the
you're-
boards are
when-
pretty loose. That's something we need to report to CSX to repair.
Yes.
And there's an
Sometimes,
emergency number and they're usually responsive.
yes, that is very important over there because sometimes it deflates your tire, it spoil your tire. So that's why I was telling Miss Adam and the town manager, if they can go and examine that place to see if they can report it to CS whatever. That's what I'm saying. And the 54th Avenue, everybody here, please, we need 2-speed hump over there. The people are driving every day, every 3 weeks, you have an accident in this 54th place here. Thank you.
Any additional council comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Langlois, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to see you're up and about. Ms. Adams, thank you for coming out tonight with this presentation. One question and one observation. When I look at when I reviewed over the presentation, I saw that we're looking at speed humps and crosswalks on Taylor Road, and if I remember right, that was for the upper part of Taylor Road near the school. Is that correct?
That speed hump, let's see if I can find that picture I was referring to. That one has been installed.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Well, I'm noticing because it's humps plural as opposed to a singular. And I know that one was put in. I didn't know if there was other ones that were being considered for farther north on Taylor or not. The reason I bring that up is because I've had a number of folks approach me at the southern end of Taylor regarding about the possibility of speed humps. While we do have a speed camera there on Taylor, which is effective about to the part where north of Longfellow on upwards, It does not really deter any accelerating traffic at the southern end of Taylor, pretty much from about the 5500 block south to where it meets with Lafayette and the and 50th Avenue and the Edmonston town line.
Okay. I guess speaking for Taylor and the one that you see at the bottom left-hand corner, this one specifically was to deter and slow down traffic as they approach the stop sign at Queensberry. You know, because for this stretch, they were definitely speeding right through that,
Oh,
trying to
I've
make
seen it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, trying to make that light. So that was that one specifically.
Yeah.
For this slide that you see now, that when it says where it says installed speed hump or humps, that was mostly referring to Rhode Island. That's what I was referring to at the time, only because Oliver to Queensbury is a long stretch.
Oh,
So we would just need to take a look at. I think it was initially proposed for one or requested one.
Right.
But I guess John, did you want to clarify that? See ya.
Not on that, no.
Oh, okay.
I have a related comment.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's what the install speed humps was initially put in there for when I was preparing it. Would it be one or a couple on Rhode Island?
Right. Right. Well, I'm just
So I guess Ivy, so are we looking at Taylor also?
Well,
Down at the
I think
southern
in
end?
response to the council members' comments, we probably should look at that section of Taylor.
Down the southern end, okay.
Yes.
many folks would appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm
Will
wondering
do.
if the first phase should be to install the radar, the speed camera, just to capture speeds and volumes. That may be where we want to start there.
Sure. However you want to do it.
Okay. And that could be done while the engineering is underway.
Okay.
Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you.
Yes, so on a related note, I just want to refer back to some information that's in the memo. And that is that what we have in front of us tonight relates to the roadway improvement project. So we have a bucket of money there, some unrestricted funds as well as highway user funds. But that's not the only lever we have to pull to address road and safety projects. We also have our Safe Streets for All grant that we're working to identify demonstration projects, which I would imagine that speed humps would fall within that, adding speed humps in various locations. We also have a walk bike drive project that's not identified yet that also has a bucket of money there. There's $350,000 in that project. So I think we have to look at things very broadly. So we're trying to address what we typically address in the roadway improvement plan, but available to the mayor and council will be projects that can fall within the Safe Streets for All, projects that fall within the walk bike drive project that's for undesignated areas. And we may actually have some other tools too, but those are two off the top of my head I remember seeing in the packet memo.
Yes.
Okay. Any additional council questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? I'm not seeing any. So I have a couple of questions or comments, Ms. Adams. First of all, I'm very pleased to see the work going in on accessibility improvements, the curb ramps and so on. I appreciate that and appreciate you keeping up with the ever-evolving ADA standards, because I do understand that that they're always trying to improve things, and we're always trying to do the best thing that we can, but it takes a little bit of time to keep up with them. So I appreciate that and understand that. As you, I believe you know, we've been having a lot of concerns about people running stop signs. And we've been discussing getting in on a new county program that I've been pushing for many years. Finally was passed by the legislature to install stop sign cameras. That has some ups and some downs to it. But in a conversation I had with County Council member Eric Olson about this, he pointed out that there are some intersections in College Park where they've installed what I would call shopping mall style speed humps, more or less in the stop line for the stop sign. And so that means that if you come to a halt and then you go again, then you're well under 5 miles an hour. And if you decide to cruise through the stop sign at more than 5 miles an hour, you really feel it because it's designed for you to be maximally going 5 miles an hour. And I was wondering if, first of all, since just because we have you here, if you have any comments on that style of speed hump / stop sign speed enforcement. And second of all, if you see any places that we might install these, I don't see them as being under this program, but perhaps under the programs the town manager spoke.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely like to know where the College Park locations are, because we always go out there, take a look, see how they're working actually in the field. You know, so it may be written one way in legislation, but we always like to go out there and just take a look and examine things. At one point on Taylor, we considered that might be a location to deter the folks at Taylor and Queensbury from driving through. To my knowledge, that our traffic engineer, she goes out and about. She may have other locations that she's looked at also, but that's the one that pops to my head. But I think at this point, other than, you know, a lot of folks in neighboring jurisdictions to Riverdale Park are doing the flashing stop signs. Me personally, I don't know how effective they bring more attention to the stop sign, but the people who are going to run the stop sign are usually still going to run the stop sign. So the only thing to deter them are things like you just mentioned. So I think you're going to start seeing them come more and more into effect. Yeah, so that is one way to really stop them.
Okay.
Yeah, other than enforcement sitting on the corner and still, you know, doing like what.
Right. Well,
doing-
the automated stop sign cameras would sort of automatically enforce that. So, you know, if
Yep.
you drive through it, you get a ticket, and
Right.
and that will slow people down, but not nearly so effectively as I think the 5 mile an hour speed humps there would. I think that people would learn about those very quickly.
Right.
And
Right.
and
Now-
I'll just
I'm sorry.
add that your statement about being concerned about sort of people queuing up behind steep speed humps. Well, in the case of one at a stop sign, I don't think we're worried about that. You know, people are supposed to stop there, and if they queue up, then they queue up, and we can consider that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any locations where you would need to worry about a queue. It's just one thing that we take a look at, but yeah, in any location that we've seen, you wouldn't have that issue. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Inyang.
Yes, I'm actually I love a good branding. So if we're calling them shopping mall stop signs or speed humps, then I'm all for it. I think the number one feedback that the Riverdale Park Station community got was, I think people were hoping for shopping mall speed humps, and we got the split ones, which actually I think are actually more effective on Woodbury than I think initially I thought there would. But you know, we had a Riverdale block party yesterday, and like the intersection of Rhode Island Avenue and Woodbury and Van Buren, there were 3 cop cars stationed there, flashing lights, and still you would just see the like people accelerating to the stop sign, and most never really stopped, or if they did, they rolled the stop. And this is with people walking through. And so if you stood there long enough, you could just see this was just every day, sort of how people react there. And that's an interesting where There are two stop signs in short order, and so whether we like pick one, that would make the most sense. But if you're talking about places where it's really important for people to actually fully stop, I think that would be something to look into. My guess would probably be the first stop sign coming from Woodbury on Rhode Island Avenue before you hit the Village Green area. People
Mhm.
tend to blow by that one, realize there's another stop sign, slam on the brakes there, or they try to like beat the car that's like coming around the Village Green, and so I think it'd be curious to know if there's like whether it's criteria that we need to come up with of just like what makes reaches a threshold for a shopping mall speed bump. But that there are probably a couple of different opportunities within the community of like outside of obviously a camera, but even if that's a precursor to a camera, that's probably worth looking into.
I agree.
Yeah, and if I can add one more time, because there was a threshold at one point, which is why Prince George's County did kind of the flat top longer one. But we all know that you can almost keep the same speed sometimes, especially when contractors don't install it per the standard that they need to. So we have seen them going more and more in like places like Riverdale Park Station, where it was a development or kind of a town-owned development. You see them more in those areas rather than on the streets, like a public thoroughfare like Taylor Avenue or Rhode Island Avenue. But I would bet with Vision Zero that that will be probably looked at again soon.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments or questions from anyone, public or members of the council? Okay, thank you, Ms. Adams. Appreciate the input and look forward to
you.
seeing you in the future.
Great, great. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Okay, that brings us to my report. I'm going to try to be short, keeping an eye on the clock. Right now, we have an election going on, a state, federal, county election. It's not a municipal election, but all the levels above us are involved. And early voting is going on right now. It started last Thursday or Friday, I believe, and continues through this Thursday, I believe, also. And then next Tuesday, November 5th, is Election Day. That's your last chance to vote in this election. I hope that everyone will carefully consider their options and get out there and vote. I was pleased to swear in a new police officer for the town this morning, and I look forward to having a more filled staff in the police department, and hope that she will do very well. And I believe believe from speaking to her that she's a Spanish speaker, and that's always good to have a new officer who speaks Spanish. As everyone knows, I have a hard time resisting discussing COVID, and I wanted to let everybody know that things for COVID are honestly really pretty good right now in the state of Maryland. Wastewater levels, emergency department visits, hospitalizations, all of these are down. I think the wastewater levels are in the moderate range, but dropping. Everything is really good. There's just one piece of news in the whole COVID rainbow that hasn't been good lately, and that is that last Monday morning I tested positive myself, and in that time I was pretty seriously ill. This was not a cold for me. I did get antiviral medications, but I felt obligated to hand over duties of the mayor to Vice Mayor Lingua, which he took on, and I appreciate him taking that on. And just want to let people know that even in times when the stats are looking good, when the conditions are looking good, you can still catch it. I caught it in a restaurant from the person sitting next to me, and just want to remind everybody that it's still there. It is going to be getting worse over the months ahead as we head into the holiday season. We gather more indoors, the temperatures drop, and we spend less time outdoors. But it's out there, and it can be serious. And please be careful and keep your mind on where you are and stay safe. And I'm still taking the antivirals. And I'm knocking on wood that when I finish this round, that the virus will be gone and I won't have to deal with this anymore. But I don't know that. We'll have to see still. A final note, as I mentioned, we're getting into the holiday season and Halloween is coming up on Thursday. Please drive carefully on Halloween night. Keep your eyes open. There's going to be a lot of ghosts and goblins out and about. And then the next holiday is going to be Veterans Day. And we will be having an event at the Veterans Monument and Town Center. And I will speak there, make some remarks there. And I hope to see as many veterans as possible at that event. I encourage everyone to come with maybe a story to tell, because I will invite any veteran who wishes to speak to come up and say a few words themselves. So please come out, please have a story ready, and I look forward to seeing you there. And that concludes my remarks for this evening. Next item on the agenda, Town Manager's Report. Mr. Town Manager.
I will be more brief now, as you covered several of the items that I was going to mention. I wanted to highlight tonight one entry in last week's status and information report. We include things from all aspects of our operation. And but on page 13, we highlight it was a police call for a robbery. And there were 6 suspects. And the 6 suspects approached someone. They produced what appeared to be a handgun, ended up being a replica. Our responding officers managed to apprehend 5 fleeing individuals on foot. And I think that's pretty incredible for our officers to be able to respond, canvass the area, and locate the folks, and run down 5 of the 6 that robbed someone here in our town. And that's just really incredible work. And so I wanted to highlight that. And I think that's all I'll mention this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for drawing attention to that. That is really great news. How many officers responded to that?
Chief?
So 5 in total, three patrol officers and a detective and an admin officer responded. But we did have some assistance from the Prince George County Police Department's helicopter in Hyattsville City as well.
Great. I thought it was going to be really amazing if 2 of our officers had managed to capture 5 of them.
Yeah.
We're good, not that good.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Appreciate your report, as always. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, Council, Committee, and Ward reports. We'll start with Councilmember Councilmember Smith, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And glad to hear you're feeling better. Good reminder for all of us to be taking precautions and get our boosters, all of those good things. I want to echo the mayor's comments about voting. There is an election, in case you've been living under a rock. The voting part of it will be complete next week, which is very exciting for our mailbox checking and TV viewing for all the mailers and ads and everything we go through. But most importantly, it's an important exercise in our democracy. I'm glad that I voted by mail this year. Got an email from the Secretary of State saying my vote has been received and counted. So that's exciting. I'm not sure. I think we may be beyond the mail-in vote deadline at this point. Don't want to put out any misinformation there. So don't quote me on that. But for future reference, if that's the case, mail-in voting is entirely safe, entirely secure, ensures that you don't run into any unforeseen circumstances on election day to prevent you from casting your ballot and participating in our democracy. I don't think I'm breaking any news when I say this election is very important. I think it's safe to assume results at the top of the ticket coming out of Maryland, still important to participate in that race, but there are certainly a number of down ballot items that are very important this year. I want to draw particular attention to question 1 on the ballot, which would enshrine a woman's rights to abortion in our Constitution here in Maryland. I think it's very important that we continue to make sure Maryland remains the safest place for women and children to live in this country. There is a wealth of really disgusting, abhorrent, hateful, bigoted misinformation about question 1 that has proliferated around the state. I've even seen signs up about it in our community. I don't want to repeat it to give it more legs, but it's important to note that 1, that disinformation is rooted in bigotry, and that this amendment is specifically about enshrining in our Constitution a woman's right to abortion care. It does nothing more than that. It ensures that in the event of a shift in the legislature or governor, that that right can't be taken away in Annapolis. It would have to go through the constitutional process, and that's very important. I'll be supporting it, and I hope other folks will make a similar decision. And then lastly, I just want to remind everybody, as Thursday is Halloween, my annual reminder that the Smith household is a full-size candy bar household. I will be handing out Hershey bars and what do we got? Reese's, Kit Kats, all that good stuff from a big bowl. If you do not bring your kids and get our full-size candy bars, my cheeks might be a little puffier next meeting, because some of that all that candy has to go somewhere. So please send your children. Make all that sugar your problem and not mine. And look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. One thing I'll add about voting is that if you vote early, then the campaigns find out about that and they quit calling you and texting you. So you can also get a little bit more peace and quiet. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2, go ahead.
I don't know what he must be getting some of that super PAC money designated to Ward 1. Full candy bars. You got to be kidding me.
Listen, man, you put a yard sign with your name on it in the front yard. It's $35 once a year at Costco, and the kids love it. It's good to go.
That's good stuff. Now I will choose to withhold my remarks until the legislative. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3. Councilmember Lingua, you're muted if you're speaking.
Sorry, first day with the new thumb. Real quick, went on the walk for the PLCC walk Saturday before last. Very interesting walk. I think there's a lot ahead for us as a municipality in working with county as well as MDOT and others, along with PLCC, to make sure that the pedestrian experience to and from the station to home, stations to the station to work, is a positive experience. And if that means really pushing back on certain designs that I believe they're going to have a meeting on in the near future, so be it. Number of considerable renovations were made along Route 1, which when you look at it has been a much larger effort than what would be needed along Kenilworth and up into the Purple Line station. So that's demonstrating that it is possible that MTA, state as well as state highway, can make improvements if needed on the pedestrian walkways in that area. And with that, I'm going to defer the rest of my report, because I know my esteemed colleague from the 4th Ward cannot wait to give his ward report, which I'm sure will cover this past weekend.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Inyang, Ward 4.
Thank you. I want to start with also the Purple Line Community Walk a few weeks ago. I know the mayor was there as well, and it's one thing to drive by infrastructure and things. It's another thing to walk it. It's another thing to walk it in a large group with everyone mostly wearing very orange, bright colored vests. And still, it took us about 20 minutes just to try to cross a street because the signals were like so quick in terms of when it would turn. And you can clearly tell an area that's designed for cars. And so those sentiments were not just shared, they were felt. So that's good. I think that's one of the reasons behind those types of community walks. So that was, I think it was success in that sense. And further, I think signifying the idea that, we've got 2 stations in our community, and I know the neighborhoods in the vicinity closest to these stations have been some of the most impacted by the construction for the longest time. And the tragedy that we can have is if they do not feel empowered or even safe to access these stations. And then these will become, I think, similar to some of the bus stops on Kenworth Avenue in our community that are bus stops in principle. I don't think a bus ever stops there because it's not safe to stop there. And so they end up being less utilized and prioritized down the road in terms of improvements. And so we don't want pass-through stations. And so I think being able to make these safer for people to walk or bike to will be key. And so I was able to express that, and a lot of that was carried by the community. So that was really good to hear. And then the last thing is just, I just can't express the gratitude that I have for the town staff on the Riverdale Park Station block party that we did on Saturday. I probably slept most of Sunday as a result because I haven't been sleeping well for the days and weeks leading up to it, navigating the process. I'm sure we'll do a debrief with all the folks invited and involved and what went well, what could be improved. I got firsthand experience sort of running point on this for the county and permitting and inspections, vendor relations. But at the end of the day, I can't express just the day of the level of professionalism that our town staff showed, really showed up from public DPW staff who came in and were extremely responsive and went out of their way to make sure that I had less things to think about, to the police officers who were on site. It actually came out in pretty big force, and I think it was helpful to just be a part of the community and people coming up. And obviously the event felt really safe, but it also felt like it was something that I had multiple people say, I can't believe we haven't done this before. I don't know if I've ever been something like this at our town, and like, when are we going to do it next year? And hopefully it's the annual thing. And I was like, give me a couple months before we start talking about planning again. But I think the idea of having, not just our town, but I think like literally the Riverdale Park and the greater Riverdale area, being able to come out and sort of celebrate that. Mother Nature cooperated as well. It was a beautiful day, and so just I'm at a loss for words for this. Wouldn't have happened had it not been for the support that I got from the town and Director Barnes and her staff down the stretch, thinking of things that I didn't, and then sort of helping to deliver this, that it became definitely like a world-class event. And I would hope that it inspires other communities, members, organizations to think about throwing their own types of events, even if it's at a smaller scale. As a community, I think we are looking to, we've talked about the standard increasing for what is expected of us as a town, and to providing services that connect with residents. And I hope that that event coordinator position, if it hasn't been filled yet, is top of mind. To kind of help plan, because definitely a professional in a role like this would be greatly appreciated, and I think the town will benefit from it. I don't know how Director Barnes has done this on her side job on a bunch of other things. Me trying to do it as a side job, it was challenging. So I'm happy to talk more folks have interest in, and I don't want to spend the rest of the meeting going through the finer points, but definitely just gratitude, and not just for me, but on behalf of a lot of people who sort of helped make that event a reality. Thank you.
Congratulations, Councilmember. I heard it was a great event. I wish I could have been there, but I'm still in isolation, so couldn't be there. Appreciate it. Councilmember Mejia, Ward 5, go ahead.
Good evening, Council Member, Mayor. I have no report. Sorry, I kind of have a little cold now.
Okay, hope you are better soon. Thank you for that. And Councilmember Calon, Ward 6.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. You see, I just want to appeal to the chief to make some police personnel to patrol around that McDonald here by Riverdale here off Kenwold Avenue. There's a lot of things happening there in the morning hours. So if the police can patrol around there, that would be fine. So apart from that, I just want to bring one question. Can one man fight a dozen?
Perhaps not successfully, but yes.
Yeah,
yes, but perhaps not successfully.
One man cannot fight a dozen. That's another explanation. Time coming. You see, in America here, Mr. Mayor, we need population. We need population. The world is changing. You see, if you look at China, there are approximately like 1.17 billion people. Then, if you look at India, their population is more than us. America need to develop their population. We need to do that. If we don't do that, time will come, we will regret it. Yes, we need population, Mr. Mayor. I hope people are listening to what I'm saying. Because now, if you look at America, the population of women are more than the men. You know why? Because men are dying in the war. And if you don't have manpower, it's going to be a problem for us. You see, sometimes, yes, you can say women have rights to defend their health and everything, but this is a very serious something. Now, Japan is giving money to women to have children, paying them. Japan is doing it right now because their population, they don't have manpower right now. So, this is my own advice. Thank you to you all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your report. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments. Are there any public comments? I'm not seeing any microphones unmuted or hands raised. I'm going to assume that means no. We can move on to work session discussion items. First item And it's before 9 o'clock. We're doing okay. Fence permit request for 5603 Silk Tree Drive, 7-foot retaining wall and 6-foot vinyl fence in backyard.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff received a building permit application from Ms. Richardson, who's here with us tonight, for the installation of a 7-foot high retaining wall and a 6-foot high vinyl fence at 6303 Silk Tree Lane. This is part of a overall very large project. It includes the repair and partial replacement of the actual existing retaining wall to address water drainage issues. And the wood fence that currently exists would be replaced with a vinyl fence. The project also includes the removal of some impervious surface in the backyard of the property. And so the applicant has obtained a Prince George's County permit and approval from the Madison Hill Homeowners Association, and staff are seeking input from the mayor and council regarding this request.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Councilmember Inyang, this is in your ward, correct? Do you have any thoughts on this? Any questions?
No, my only question was just, I was trying to get a sense of the retaining wall. Does it stretch, like, how many houses, I guess, are impacted by the retaining wall? Or is it just Ms. Richardson's property?
I believe it's just Ms. Richardson's property.
Okay.
But a lot of the houses on that side of Silk Tree actually have retaining walls in their backyard. So it's a common like setup of the backyards in that area.
Got it. Okay. I didn't know if it was you answered my question, if it was like every person has their own setup. And so just I haven't got a chance to look at the other ones, but in terms of like look and feel of like, you know, her property versus other ones in terms of how that looks, material rise, or is that, I'm assuming that's consistent with some of the others, or won't look out of place?
So it's my understanding that the retaining wall itself is not going to change as far as the materials go. They're just going to repair some of the issues that came up through water damage. They are relatively new homeowners. So this is a pretty, they knew that they needed to do this work at some point, and this is, they've gotten everything kind of lined up now at this point, and they're ready to proceed. But both the retaining wall and the fence exist in some capacity today, but it's my understanding there's not going to be any change to the actual materials used for the retaining wall. They're just going to make I think they're putting in some additional drains and some just some water management components. And then the portion that needs to be replaced is going to be replaced. But Ms. Richardson is here just in case I did not get every single detail on that one correct. And if she could correct me if I'm wrong, please do.
You got it, Jessica. That was it. Exactly. Thank you.
No, I'm definitely in support of this. I think it makes sense. And I know the 6-foot wall, as well as I think abuts the what do we call that, park area, and so I think it makes sense, and I think it's consistent with other houses in the area as well. And the fact that the HOA approved it, I support it as well.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any additional council questions? Any public questions or comments? Ms. Richardson, I just have one question. The 6-foot high fence, is that replacing a 6-foot high fence or replacing a shorter fence?
It's replacing a taller fence, it appears, in some parts. And it's also going to replace on the backside of the home a chain link fence. So it's kind of different variations that exist right now. And also one of the big things that the fence will be doing is enclosing the house within the property boundaries. Right now, the existing fence exceeds toward the parking planning that's behind the home, their space. So we're just trying to keep the parameter within our property line.
Understood. And I'm sure that Park and Planning appreciates that you're giving them little sliver of land back. They may not use it for anything immediately, but they do like that. Okay, so I very much appreciate those details, and I was going to verify that it was Park and Planning property behind you, so thank you for answering that question in advance. I have no other questions. Thank you. Okay, so unless anyone has any objections, it sounds like this should go on the consent agenda next week. Is that correct, Councilmember?
Yes.
Okay, so that will be the plan. So Ms. Richardson, unless something comes up, then this will fly through. And if it sounds like someone's going to object and ask to be taken off of that, which I don't believe I've seen ever, then we will try to let you know in advance.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay, let's move on to next item under discussion items. Fence permit request for 4904 Sheridan Street, 6-foot wood fence in the backyard.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff recently received a building permit application from Mr. and Mrs. Lira for the installation of a 6-foot high wood fence in the backyard of their property at 4904 Sheridan Street. The applicant has obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project. It's my understanding that the 6-foot portion in the backyard is replacing some areas that need repair, and it will be a wooden fence in the backyard. The overall project included some 4-foot fencing in, I believe, the front yard area, and that has been completed. The applicants have met all the administrative requirements for this request. I'm not sure if the applicants are here, Mr. Mayor. I haven't seen them in the list.
Yes, hello,
Okay.
I am here. I'm Michelle Espinolita. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Foe, any questions or comments?
No, I looked at the plans. I was a little bit confused about the mesh fence up front, but I think I've seen it before. Ms. Espino, have you talked to your neighbors about this change in fencing?
Yes, we have, and they're relieved that we are
No, it looks
replacing
like
the
it's going to be
fence.
it's going to be a fantastic addition. All right, there we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think
Yeah.
everything looks great. And unless staff
Thank you.
has any concerns, I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any questions from other members of the council? Looks awfully quiet.
I have no question.
Very good. Any questions from members of the public or comments? Okay, Councilmember Foe, you would like this to go on the consent agenda next week, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, let's plan to do that then. Thank you very much, Ms. Espino. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2025 revenue update. It's a staff report, I believe.
Yes, Deputy Director Jones.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's revenue reports cover the current fiscal year, the months of July to October 25th, and then the 3 previous fiscal years, 24, 23, and 22. We have 5 major revenue categories, the first being local taxes, which includes your real estate taxes, personal property, local, and operating. For fiscal year 2025, that total is $4,155,786. In previous years, if you notice fiscal year 2023, that figure looks to be higher than 22 and 24 in comparison. Reason being that was the odd year where real estate taxes were collected, that notices were sent out at a later date. So that total $4,460,190. The majority of the real estate revenue was collected in the month of October. So that's why it looks like revenue is much higher in fiscal year 2023, but it's really just a timing thing. The next major category is licenses and permits. The total there is $193,141. In comparison to the previous fiscal year, looks like our multifamily rental licenses are a bit higher than the previous fiscal year. For the next major category, which is administrative fees, this includes abatement charges and municipal infractions. The total is 2,300. Next major category, fines and forfeitures, which includes the parking citations, vehicle impounds, and police reports. The total here is 20,953. If you look at the parking citations line item, is significantly higher than previous years past. And that is due to the implementation of a new parking citation service that has been implemented for fiscal year 25. And the last major category is community safety programs. This includes the speed cameras. The total for fiscal year 25 is 302,453. This is up a bit higher than previous years with the addition of cameras for fiscal year 2025. So overall, total revenue that we have is 4,674,633. At this point, in comparison to previous fiscal years, we're right where we need to be. Again, fiscal year 2023, a timing thing where we had more real estate income revenue than we have in other years. So yeah, that concludes the revenue reports. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Any questions from council? Look like it.
Had none.
Any public comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Appreciate the report and the explanations and all the items, so I didn't have to ask. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, actually the next two items are sort of pulled together. So why don't I'll go ahead and have staff introduce the discussions.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. This is the legislation that was recommended by the Board of Elections to make some adjustments to the town election timeline. This legislation is one ordinance and one charter amendment. Staff are requesting that the mayor and council adopt the ordinance at the as amended at the next meeting, and then hold a public hearing on November the 4th as required for charter amendments. There was some significant discussion throughout the process about the candidate filing deadline. And so below in red on the cover memo is some language. We worked with Mayor Thompson on this language to make some adjustments. It retains the 65 days preceding the election, but it also ties the candidate filing deadline to a specific day, which is Thursday, and which it has been in the past. So it will fall on a Thursday, and it would be just earlier than previous years. That would require a amendment to both the ordinance and the charter amendment, and that could be done at the next meeting.
Thank you, Director Barnes. And just to explain what's going on there, we discussed earlier in the initial introduction of this, and when the Board of Elections members were here, that 65 days before the first Monday in May is going to always be on a Saturday, which seemed like a bad day to have something due. It requires staff to come in on a Saturday and wait for a few hours. It would not have the whole day available. It just seemed like it was a problem. And so my initial thought was to set that number to be 67 days, which would be, exceed the number that was requested by the Board of Elections, and that would put it on a Thursday reliably, and that seemed like a good solution. But then, as I was reading over the rest of the legislation, after having done that research and those calculations, then I realized that there is the possibility of having early voting, as the state is having right now in that election. and there's no guaranteed date for when early voting was start. And so the 65 days before that was not a predictable day of the week, because the council could decide that rather than starting early voting on a Monday, they would start it on a Saturday or a Friday or even a Thursday. And so it seemed like it was a good idea to nail down the day of the week and to then specify that it was at least 65 days prior to the start of voting, whether that was early voting or actual election day. And that was how this language came about. And as I told the town manager in an email, I was having a hard time with the language. And so I had a longish conversation with an AI about the language and had to correct the AI's metalogical error. But I was able to finally get some language that I was happy with and the AI was happy with. And apparently the town manager is fairly happy with it because he didn't push back too hard. And that's where everything came from. So with that, any additional council discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think well, I have a question here concerning the date.
Mm-hmm.
Day before the 65th date. Okay, that will be what date?
So
what month and what date?
So 65 days before the first Monday in May is, if assuming there's no early voting, is typically right around the February-March boundary. Most of the time it is in March. Very occasionally it would sneak into February, but that's 65 days. And when you add the extra days to get it to a Thursday, which was 67 days if you're still sticking with the election day, then that would be fairly often the last few days of February, and most of the time would be the first few days of March. Does that answer your question?
That February next year?
Do I know what it is for next year? I do not know what it is for next year. I have that written down, but I don't have it in front of me.
Well, that's what I want to know. If it is February next year, or
well, as I remember, let me go ahead and pull up my calendar. So election day. Surprised that Councilmember Lingua hasn't already answered this. So election day this year is May 5th. And so 65 days before May 5th is going to be March 1st. And then the Thursday before that would be February 27th.
the registration are going to start like March 1st.
So the petitions are due on this year. The petitions are due. I'm going to look at this date again just to be sure. This year, the petitions are due on February 27th. And so you need to start getting signatures at least a few weeks earlier than that.
Okay. Okay, so when you want to, because what I'm reading here, to register for be a candidate should be before 65th. That's why I want to say it's going to start like February.
Well, what start in February?
When you want to apply for candidacy.
You have to turn in your petition on February, this upcoming year, 2025, you have to turn in your petition at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on February 27th with all the signatures on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So do you have the letterhead in the office or where, like the last time?
The forms are not yet available. We still have legislation in front of us. We still have to decide that this is what we're going to do. And once that is done, then the Board of Elections will start working on the forms. I'm sure that they'll be available very early in the year.
Okay. Well, that is all I want to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I have any question, I will contact Mrs. Jessica.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Inyang.
In the event of early voting, so the way it's written or preceding the start of early voting, Does that mean if early voting was, say, a week before election day, then it would just be tacked on to the beginning of the week?
Exactly. So in the example of next year, if the council decided to have early voting Monday through Friday of the previous week, then that would, I'm not sure I would think that would be a good idea, but if they did, then that would take the due deadline from February 27th to February 20th. And there may be a one off there that I'm not getting correctly, but that it's at least pretty close to February 20th.
Okay. I got it. I've read this sentence like 7 times, and I think there's so many ors, but I think it is syntax. The syntax is correct. I think you're right. I think it makes sense. Okay, I'm good with it.
As I said, the AI had a slightly less confusing language that was unfortunately technically incorrect. So had to, and it fessed up. That was the thing that really amazed me. I said, "Isn't there a logical problem there?" It's like, "Oh yeah, good point."
It's learning.
Okay. Any additional council questions on this particular piece of it? There's lots more information in here about the legislative timeline, about all the pieces of legislation. But okay, are there any public comments or questions? Okay, I'm going to see. I don't think I marked up anything in the legislation. I'm scanning through my local copies. Looks good. Yeah, that was the only issue that that I found. So, okay, I guess we are ready to roll on those 2 pieces of legislation. So let's move on to discussion item 6, ordinance 2024-OR-10 regarding Chapter 72, Riverdale Park Legacy Mixed Use Town Center Local Design Review Committee.
Mr. Chelton?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. As we spoke about at a previous meeting, this update to Chapter 72 would bring the town code in line with the recent changes to the county zoning ordinance, mainly bringing our language up to date with the changes from mixed-use town center to legacy mixed-use town center. And just as a quick overview of the key differences between what we had before and what is currently proposed, like I mentioned before, the terminology change, including the word legacy in front of mixed-use town center. There's some clarification on committee membership, the appointment process, the term of membership, and the vacancy process. If there are any questions about this ordinance, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director Shelton. Council members, any questions? Okay, any comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, Director Shelton, I had just a few. I don't know if these came in from the previous ordinance or it seems like a few typos. So if we could go to line 48 in the ordinance. Then I think it should be business and/or property owners. That's, like I said, seems to be just a typo.
I see, yes.
Line 54, I think that that should read a 7th member having certain technical or design expertise, not of design expertise. So that should be an or, not an of.
Yes.
I think the comma after expertise needs to be moved down to line 56 right after finance. And those are, like I said, these just seem to be small typos, but I thought I'd bring them up now.
It does appear that those are the originals, but I appreciate you catching those. We'll make sure that the this ordinance is updated to correct for those.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Let me scan through and see if I caught any others. I think those were it. Yeah, that's it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, discussion item 7, Lafayette Streetlight Project, CIP Project 21 PW03 Streetlight Improvement.
Director Lewis? You're muted.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and council members. I actually like to start my report on the Lafayette Avenue Streetlight Project with a very quick update on the town's streetlight inventory. In 2019, the town owned 143 ornamental pedestrian-style streetlights on Riverdale Road and Queensberry and in the town center. To date, all of them have been converted to LED with a light temperature of 3,000 kelvins, the town's new standard. As of today, the inventory has grown to 223 streetlights, a difference of 80. The town took ownership of 60 streetlights in Riverdale Park Station. 11 were installed on 54th Avenue, south of Riverdale Road in 2023, and the 9 streetlights were recently installed on the trolley trail. The FY 2025 capital improvement program includes the newest streetlight project, which is on Lafayette Avenue from Riverdale Road to Nicholson Street and 47th Avenue from Nicholson to Longfellow Street. If you could scroll to map 2 in the staff report. It shows the project boundary extending from Riverdale Road to Longfellow Street. The project came about as a result of a concern from a resident about increase in theft, including auto from private property. The police have confirmed a rise in auto thefts in this area of town, leading to more car and foot patrols in the area. At the same time, there are trees along the entire west side of Lafayette that shield the tracks from view and soften the noise from passing train. Map 1 in the staff report actually shows that corridor. And without streetlights, this environment can attract a crime. Currently, there are no streetlights in the project area, or specifically on Lafayette, but there are streetlights on existing Pepco poles on 47th. The lighting analysis that will be done will determine whether those lights on Pepco poles are sufficient to provide illumination, primarily for pedestrians. They typically focus on the road. And so we will may actually receive a recommendation to replace the lights on existing Pepco poles, 1 to LED if they're not already, and at the county counts the town standard of 3,000 kelvins. If in fact the lighting analysis or photometric analysis was the word I was looking for, determines that the existing Pepco lights are just not adequate for illuminating the sidewalk and walking paths. Town-owned lights are being considered for Lafayette Avenue. The project received a $195,000 grant from the county through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which requires a $50,000 match, bringing the project budget to a total of $245,000. At the November legislative meeting, staff will seek authorization for the town manager to sign a task order contract with Mead and Hunt to provide the photometric analysis, an engineering plan, and oversee the installation of the lights. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Council members, are there questions or comments for Director Lewis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know what effort the director they have made for street lights at that corner. I've been said this for many times. That corner is very dark. From 54th Avenue have a light until Jefferson. From Jefferson now to that sprinkling area, there is no light. I don't know they are always telling me it's on the program, but I'm not seeing any effort. I don't know what effort have they tried to make now to have light in that corner.
So as part of the 54th Avenue Streetlight Project was a recommendation to put lights on 3 existing Pepco poles south of Jefferson. That request was submitted to Pepco a while back. I heard recently that it's been assigned to a designer. And I don't expect it'll take a lot of time to design the type of streetlight. I believe that Pepco itself has converted most of its lights, or its new lights will be at 3,000 Kelvin, a softer yellow light as opposed to a brighter one, which is the town's new standard of 3,000 Kelvin. So I expect that I guess it's possible that those lights can be installed within the next couple of months. And
Yeah,
I
you're
keep
talking about
checking in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're talking about Jefferson. I'm talking about from Jefferson to that Spring Lane area, that corner.
No, sorry, I'm actually talking about 54th Avenue south of Jefferson. In fact,
Yes.
along the curve that leads
Yes.
to Spring
Yeah.
Lane. There are 3
Yeah.
existing Pepco poles on the west side of the street, and I've requested that lights be installed on those poles.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what I
Okay.
wanted.
Sure, thank you, and we apologize that it's taken so long.
And Councilmember Kellon, just understand that Pepco can sometimes be very, very slow. And I
Like,
can tell you,
be
having watched for 20 or 30 years, that they can be really slow sometimes and they can be really fast sometimes, and you can't predict what's going to happen.
AC, Pepco, PWD, they are always slow. And
And
they are
we
doing
put
the
in 2
job.
requests, actually. We have 2 requested, one for 54th near Spring Lane, or 54 in the Spring Lane area, and the new Pocket Park.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that wasn't the project we're intending to be talking about here. So let's try to get back to Lafayette. And council members, any questions or comments about the this project, the Lafayette Street Light Project?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Enyang, go ahead.
So for clarification, there are Pepco poles in this section of Lafayette, but they're just not bright enough, or there are no.
There are Pepco lights on 47th from Nicholson to Longfellow. I saw about 4 or 5 of them, and I was actually on Google Map, not on the ground. And so the photometric analysis will tell us whether those lights are efficient enough for pedestrians. Again, most Pepco lights tend to focus on the roadway. And so as a part of the analysis, it might determine that we need additional lighting along that street, which may require us to introduce new town-owned lights, or to change to LED if they're not currently LED, which tend to be a little brighter and of course more energy efficient.
And Director Lewis, if I could ask a clarifying question, Mr. Mayor, I think it'll help the council member.
Mhm.
There are currently no lights, am I understanding this correctly, on Lafayette?
That's right.
From Riverdale Road to
Nicholson.
To Nicholson. So there's currently no lights along that stretch.
Right.
And then south of there is where you have some Pepco poles.
Right.
And if we can utilize those poles or upgrade those lights, then we would do that.
Right.
Provided it meets the requirements specified from the photometric analysis.
Got it. Thank you. As I look at the map and Lafayette turns into 47, that makes a lot more sense now. And so, but along the Lafayette side where there are no lights, there are Pepco poles that we may be introducing lights to, or that would just be installing brand new lights.
So no, there aren't any Pepco poles on Lafayette. So we'll be installing town-owned lights and on the residential side of the street.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I appreciate the clarification, as well as the background on Pepco taking their time, because I know the 54th Avenue area is another place where we've talked about Pepco lights in the past. So I was hoping that if there were lights that we were like taking off and maybe upgrading, I'm like, can we move those lights to other parts? But if that's not necessarily the case, then I was mistaken.
Okay. Any additional council questions? Looks awfully quiet. Any public comments? Ms. Katz, no comments?
Is she still with us?
No, my only thought, once again, I'm just here to make sure I'm up on what's going on in town. But with lighting, you know, and I'm not an expert at lighting design, but I noticed that when Pepco does put lights on their poles, they're very high up on the pole. And I'm sure that's part of the design because it's for the throw of the light. But when we really want to light a path, for example, it always seemed to me like it would be more productive to make the lights lower. So once again, your eye is not looking at the light itself, but the light is actually getting to the surface that you want lit. But once again, you know, I'm not a professional designer, but I just, the trolley trail lights has not been, you know, the eye is drawn to the bulb, the light up there, and not, the effect of actually lighting where we want people to be seen. Seems like it's not optimized, but that's just my thought.
Thank you. Unless there are additional public or council comments, I have a few questions myself, 1 or 2 questions. And first of all, thank you for clarifying that we'll be installing both pole, and just want to verify this, from Riverdale Road to Nicholson, we'll be installing both poles and lights, correct?
Well, we'll be installing town-owned pedestrian style lights, yes.
So they'll be the style that we've been installing elsewhere in town, the decorative fixtures?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
With 3000 Kelvin light temperature.
And then south of Nicholson, we'll be having more standard Cobra style lamps on the Pepco poles. Is that the plan? If
It's
needed?
being considered because there are existing Pepco poles. But again, if
Okay.
the lighting analysis tells us it's not casting enough light, then we might add town-owned lights along that stretch of roadway as well.
And would those town-owned lights be on the Pepco poles and high, or would they be the lower pedestrian style lamps?
They would definitely be the same lower pedestrian style lights.
Okay.
So
Fine.
on 54th Avenue, there are Pepco lights on the west side of the street. We install town-owned pedestrian style lights on the east side of the street. It'll be the
Okay.
same scenario. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, one of the issues that's come up in the ever dragging on discussion about transfer of lighting from Pepco to municipal control is, first of all, the fact that it makes a lot of financial sense, and but it sounds like we're not doing that here. We're just going to be potentially installing our own lamps, which are to human scale much more than the Pepco ones. And you know, one of the questions was whether we had to worry about maintenance, but it sounds like all the new lamps we're looking at are pedestrian oriented and sized, and so we don't have to worry about that. So that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional council or public questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Director Lewis. Let's move on to discussion item 8, committee vacancies and recruitment.
Director Barnes.
Certainly. No action is requested this evening. Staff seek an opportunity to update the mayor and council on committee vacancies and some upcoming recruitment efforts. The town was recently notified by Pat Doyen, who's a member of our Board of Elections, that she's not planning to seek another term. So that is a vacancy that we will need to fill in the very near future. And there remains a vacancy for the under 18 years of age member of the Board of Elections. If you recall, we did take action, the mayor and council did take action to appoint an under 18-year-old member of the board, but their work schedule and school schedule changed unexpectedly. And so they were unable to fulfill the obligations. In fact, they were unable to even be able to be sworn in. So that's the status of the Board of Elections. We've talked about it quite a bit amongst the board. They are asking that the mayor and council consider appointing residents who reside in wards 5 and 6. I feel like those wards are not necessarily represented on the board, and perhaps a Spanish speaker to just really increase the diversity of the Board of Elections. And so we'll go ahead and start advertising on the town's communication platforms these vacancies, and hopefully we'll find some interested candidates that we will forward directly to Mayor Thompson for his review. And we also wanted to mention that town election is coming up. And so we will need election judges and maybe at least one more this year than we had anticipated. We do have one of our board members who will be traveling. So we'll need to have an alternate to cover as an election judge for the upcoming town election. So all of those things will start happening really soon, right after the general election. We didn't want to confuse anyone since there's filing deadlines and all of that good stuff. So we will be really, the board will really be getting out there and doing a lot of recruitment starting after the general assembly, or I'm sorry, the general election in November.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Members of the council, comments, questions? Okay, members
Mayor.
of the public. Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
I'm wondering if we have done in the past or in this effort, any outreach to Parkdale High School on the under 18 member. I think that could, serve to identify someone to serve in that role, but also as a reminder to the students there that of our inclusive voter registration laws here in town.
Certainly, that is one of the outreach efforts planned by the board. And so we'll be reaching out specifically to the Student Government Association to help us get the word out and see if there are students who would be interested in participating, even in the capacity as an election judge or even a poll watcher. We really want to get as many folks involved in the town elections as possible.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another possible option is, of course, to send direct mailings to the members who are registered, since people can register before they turn 18. And so just sending them a nice letter on, one of those nice old-timey envelopes so it looks important, put a gold star on the back of it, and maybe get them to open it and take a look at it.
It's a great idea.
Okay. If there's any public comments or questions on this this item?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh, Councilmember Lingua, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Along with Parkdale, I know we have students that also go to Bladensburg High School. I'm not sure if we have any students going to Northwestern. And as well, I know we do have a fair number that are going to College Park Academy. So
Good
if we're going to
point.
be in for a dime, let's be in for $1.
That sounds like we're more in for 50 cents there, but that's, well, go for it. Understand the idea.
Well, 2 bits on the open market, whatever.
Okay, very good. Moving on, next item on discussion is number 9, community conversations and walk and talks.
Just continue, Jess. I think the next one's yours as well.
I have a few, but the next 2 are fun. So this is they're pretty exciting. So we have the schedule for the proposed dates and actually topics for the community conversations that'll be happening. We usually do this in the winter time, and we have kind of consolidated our schedules to really get folks after the holiday season. It's always so busy in November and December. So the dates that we have for community conversations this year would be January 18th, February 22nd, and March 15th. And that's at, of course, the beginning of the calendar year. The first meeting in January, we plan to cover the budget process and public input. So we did this last year. It's just another opportunity to talk about the budget and get some feedback for the community. The February meeting will be just in time to talk about the town election and process, voter education, and all that good stuff. And then in March, we have tentatively planned the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative, and this might cover a specific project or the program as a whole. But that's where we are with as far as the 3 proposed dates and topics for the community conversations for calendar year 2025. And then the walk and talks are scheduled for June 21st at 9:30, September 20th, and October the 18th. And if you'll notice, those all start after the election, and that is our regular schedule for an election year.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Any comments or questions from the council? Any public comments or questions? Councilmember Lingua, your mic is open. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think they look, for the conversations and the walk and talks, I think those look good.
I agree. Okay. Moving on to the next discussion item, item 10, street closure for upcoming town events.
Thank you again. These are requested street closures for the upcoming Veterans Day ceremony and the holiday season kickoff event. We're going to kick off the holiday season with Small Business Saturday. So it's a little bit earlier this year than we've done in the past. Our Veterans Day event always happens on November the 11th at 11 a.m. at the Veterans Monument. The event will be outdoors. It'll include music coordinated by Riverdale Park Arts, and certainly comments, as Mayor Thompson mentioned earlier in the evening. He will be providing his comments. We also have one of our police officers who again has graciously offered to sing for us. So it's a really nice ceremony that really brings in a lot of different parts of the town community and the staff, and it's just overall very, very nice. One thing that staff have been doing a little bit differently this year is that we're working to gather comments from veterans, both residents and staff, through a survey on what Veterans Day means to them. And so it was initially our plan to share those comments in the town crier. We didn't quite get those in time. So we'll likely have those prepared if we receive some either as an insert to the brochure or the program for the day. And then on our communication platforms, we'd like to share that. It'll be really interesting and exciting and nice to hear what it means to veterans, what Veterans Day means to them. So that's one thing that's new this year that the town will be working on, or staff have already started working on. So if you have, I know we have at least one veteran on the council, so I would really love to have, we would love to have those comments. So if you have a few moments, that would be great. And then the holiday season kickoff event is going to happen on Small Business Saturday. So again, it's in the town center area from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are requesting to close the parking lot, specifically just like we did last year, to allow for parking in at least the back portion closer to the train station. And then we'll still keep Maryland Avenue open. The event is planned to have lots of lights in the town center like we did similar last year. Music coordinated by Riverdale Park Arts. Riverdale Park Farmers Market Inc. is coordinating vendors. We're going to have the iceless ice skating rink again. That was super popular. We do have one little addition. I think we are going to do some snowboarding also. So this is a winter snow themed event. We are going to be offering hot cocoa, hot cider, and hot coffee. And we're very much hoping that Manifest Bread is open again in time to be able to help us with that. We will again be distributing our Shop Local, Shop Riverdale Park reusable canvas bags. So the focus will be kicking off the holiday season, please shop in Riverdale Park. And so that's what the message we'll be sharing with folks. We'll be collecting toys for our holiday toy drive. And this year we also will have a visit from Santa. So it's a full event for 3 hours. It's earlier this year, mostly because of the popularity of the iceless ice skating rink. We wanted to make sure to have that. So our rain/snow date is December the 20th, but we're hoping for wonderful weather like we had last year.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Inyang, do you want to help Director Barnes get this event up and running? I know you have a lot of experience with getting events going.
I think she's got it down. Well, since I'm talking, I mean, great event. And again, one of those things, I think the minute people experienced it, they were like, I'm looking forward to this next year. And so to see the stakes continue to raise is fantastic. And if you need help on getting bathroom trailers, I know somebody that can do that for you. So let me know.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Smith, I believe you were wanting to make a comment, question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Ms. Barnes and staff for planning these great events. In terms of the Veterans Day event, I would encourage, as available, my fellow members of the council and everyone in the community to attend that as you're able. I know it's kind of difficult on a Tuesday if you, like me, now work at a place that does not provide Veterans Day as a holiday. If you detect some annoyance in my voice there, you'd be very astute. It's a very meaningful event for our whole community. The mayor always delivers very great, meaningful remarks. So really encourage folks to be there. For the Christmas event, I would echo the remarks of my colleague from Ward 4. Just an event that continues to grow, continues to raise expectations, and continues to meet those raised expectations. Anxious to see snowboarding. I'm sure you'll pull it off. Not sure how you top that for Christmas 2025, but look forward to seeing that as well. I know the last communication from Manifest Bread was that due to some permitting delays from park and planning that I've talked about in this council previously, they will not be able to open their retail location there by the end of this year. And that's how it currently looks, but I know they are still staffing farmers markets and things like that. So as more of a catering opportunity, I think they would be available for that. And I'm sure you have their contact information, but if not, I can help you get in touch there. So thanks to staff for all the great work planning this, and looking forward to getting another Shop TRP tote bag, since the one I got last year has been reappropriated within my household, apparently.
They're great bags.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Appreciate that. Any additional council questions or comments? Any public comments or questions? Okay, let's go on to discussion item 11, county state legislative priorities.
All right, one more time, just one more item. This is a list of the legislative priorities that the town talked about last year. So I think it was the first year last year that we held a District 22 legislative dinner at the request of Senator Washington. It was extremely successful, and he has scheduled one for this year as well. So these are an opportunity, this dinner is an opportunity to talk about what we want in the next year. Sometimes it's bond bill related, other times it's been legislative items that we'd like to have fixed, or legislative priorities we'd like to pursue. Last year, I believe the mayors came together and created a list of joint priorities, and we wanted to include that in the packet materials. Tonight, we're just starting the discussion. The event is scheduled for December the 3rd, and we anticipated that there would be a lot of things to discuss this year. So this is just the starting point of what we shared last year. And we just wanted to start the conversation and start thinking about the upcoming General Assembly session.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead, or even ask.
Just to add, for discussion or wherever we're going here, I know I don't get unilateral ability to add things to the list, but my day job, I've been doing a lot of work around housing policy and some of the small things we could do better. And I see affordable housing here, and that's great. We particularly, aside from building affordable housing, just need to make it easier to build any kind of housing, specifically sort of infill type housing where we can do like smaller scale things. Like one thing that I know Montgomery County has been looking into or working to do is legalizing accessory dwelling units by right, which are, some folks call those mother-in-law suites or granny suites or something, but it's an addition to your house with separate entrance and everything like that for, a separate occupancy. Anything we can do in that range of just allowing more infill housing, allowing more people to build housing on property they already own without going through a cumbersome permitting process, and recognizing, of course, the value of the permitting process. And some things we have to just check and make sure people are doing things right. But a lot of our regulations across the country, but in our county and state as well, are just sort of outdated for the type of housing we're building and the type of housing that needs to be built. So would certainly encourage more that we can do in any area on that front, just making it easier to build any kind of housing.
Thank you, Councilmember. The possibility of accessory dwelling units was discussed a lot during the zoning rewrite, and it became controversial, and that was such a big rewrite that they decided to drop it. But I think that could definitely come back up in discussions about amendments to the zoning ordinance. They seem to be open. I'm pretty sure that Councilmember Olson is open to it. And I think that there may be some special elections rolling around, and so maybe some people who are running for various county council seats could have questions asked of them, and see if we can get a commitment out of them for that. But it's a very good point that there are lots of different ways to address the lack of affordable housing, and that's one of them. So good point. Additional council comments? Any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Lingua, you're moving slow tonight. That new thumb of yours is need to get it oiled up or something. Go ahead.
As I brought up during the ward report, working with the state regarding I guess this is under infrastructure and state road improvement in terms of a joint priority, but this is really more of an individual priority unless other municipalities where the purple line's running through are share, similar concerns about the pedestrian experience to and from stations. Being that monies for MTA comes predominantly from the state legislature, working ways to make sure that those infrastructure and road improvements around there are going to make for a positive experience.
Well, we can certainly propose that as one of our legislative priorities is to ensure that. And I think it's crucially important. I'm just to let you know, there has been quite a bit of discussion about the finances of the state not looking very good. And as I think you know, but I think unless we ask, we can't get it. So I think it's reasonable to try to put that in that we need to ensure that the overall impact on the neighborhoods that are near these stations should be quite positive. So agree with that.
Yeah, I know that situation is adverse for them, yet this is a major project that they've been having going on for a number of years, and to not make that much of a commitment now is really gonna, God, dare I use the word, it's gonna doom the project before you even get a train through through a station. Because if people are perceiving that, you know, getting to and from a station is not something that's really, oh, not a worry, it's great because everything is well set up, as opposed to, it means we got to walk to the station, you know, and they're dreading the idea. It's the states, the states just put a lot of money towards something that's not really going to work well for those they want to encourage to use public transit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. Okay. Well,
it would be short-sighted not to.
I think we can work on that.
Great. Thank you.
I will, unless there's an additional council question or public question, I'll just point out that the enabling legislation for automated stop sign enforcement was passed, and you know, as far as we're concerned, I think we can take that off of the list. We don't need to worry about that anymore.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know much about these affordable houses. Is this affordable houses is for low income earners or is for seniors?
I think it's not specific at that level. I think that the point is to make housing, you know, a stock of housing available for people who make less money. And whether that's an older person on a fixed income or a younger family, I think that that we don't have a focus there. Do you have a preference for which of those we would focus on?
Yeah, it's for those who are making less money.
Yes, I mean, that's the point of affordable housing, is that people who don't have the money.
Where can people find that type of houses?
Well, right now, not very many places. That's the problem. So if we increase the supply of affordable housing, as Councilmember Smith said earlier, there's different ways that we could look to do that. And so if you increase the supply of affordable housing, then presumably, or supply of housing overall, I've actually heard that from some people, then the amount of affordable housing increases and prices come down.
Okay. Are we going to build a new affordable houses or they are there already?
So this is legislative priorities, and this would be, I believe that the idea would be to build more. And so we would ask the state and or the county to invest funds in encouraging developers to build affordable housing and changing the laws to require more affordable housing when building market rate housing, a variety of issues. But the idea is to get more housing built and more housing that people can afford to be as part of that mix.
When do that's going to be commenced?
Well, the lobbying process will commence in early December. And when it will start, who knows? This is not going to be quick. It's taken years and years that the supply has been getting smaller and smaller. And so I don't expect to have any apartments opening up in spring or summer of 2025. I think we're probably looking at 3 to 5 years at least.
But there's nothing right now.
No, it's not right now. But we, you know, all these projects take time. We have to start somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any additional council or public comments on these county state legislative priorities? Okay, thank you. I think we got some good input this evening. Can adjust the list a little bit. And as Director Barnes said, we need to have a polished presentation on December 3rd. And so we will work on this for the next couple of meetings and try to get it finished off. Next item on the discussion agenda are minutes. I will say what I always say, that minutes are the not only the first, but typically the final draft of history. They can be amended if needed, but generally that doesn't happen. I can't think of a time when we've had to go back and amend some minutes. And so please pay attention. And maybe Director Barnes should sneak a few things into the minutes just to make it a little bit more exciting. A few little gotchas in there to see if people notice them. But
Oh, for heaven's sake.
I know that she is too professional to do that. She takes this extraordinarily seriously, and that's why we seldom, if ever, have corrections for her. Okay, last item on the agenda is Council Fiscal Year 2026 budget priorities. We had quite a good discussion about this at a recent meeting. So any additional discussion that people would like to have on these areas, things that people would like to see added in, put into these areas?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
I believe I raised it when we talked about this at the previous meeting, but would just reiterate my desire to see some pretty ambitious and radical proposals around pedestrian cyclist safety. And I know staff share that aspiration, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we get there.
Sounds good. Councilmember Yang, saw
Yeah.
your microphone was open. Go ahead.
I just have questions in terms of the definition of like community development and sort of what entails that part.
So I think community development is as broad or as narrow as we want to define it.
Okay.
And that's not a cop-out answer. The budget has evolved over the years, and it's evolved because the members of the mayor and council have said, can we do this or can we do that? So we do have community development related programs and grants, so placemaking initiatives, I would say, fall under community development. We participate in a variety of CIP related things that would be classified more as community development. And I think of the underpass project. That's more of a community development. When we're developing parks, which is new for the town. But so we're going to have the Adam and Emily Plummer Park, Mount Rose. We finished, except for the perimeter fencing, the tot lot. Those are community development type projects. It does and has not historically included, I would say, the softer side of community development. We have focused on bricks and mortar related community development.
Thank you. That makes sense. And it's helpful to get the at least some current examples. I think as the town center, the town hall building opens at some point, and I know some of the redesigns will hopefully facilitate some of the softer sides of that community development. I think we could think about prioritizing what that might look like. I'm not sure what happened beforehand and that we lost with the construction plus COVID, but I think taking a fresh look on what that might look like would be helpful. And then the only other thing it'd be interesting to talk about is, I know we've talked about the website redesign, and we may have money already allocated for, or it's in progress, but like attended the Riverdale Park Business Association, and they've got some new folks in there, new blood in there, thinking more holistically about a sort of web presence. And I think it's a larger conversation on, there's a conversation in terms of like, should this be something that the town manages or some other entity? But the idea of, being thoughtful in terms of how we sort of represent businesses, how the town or some association can sort of use that as a resource, that everything from when you look up stuff in Riverdale Park, it pops up and it becomes something where people aspire to sort of participate in. And so, but it's one of those things, I've seen examples of this in other cities and towns done well. But I think the initial cost of like getting things up and running is a cost, which may be separate than sort of ongoing maintenance. And so I think it's something to think about of just like from an economic development standpoint. We may not be able to give like robust business grants across of all of our businesses, but if there's something that is more of a shared service, if there's something that else like an online presence or repository or something that's a little more active, that might be an opportunity to think about economic development as well. So, but we'll take you up on your offer and probably schedule some time. I think you said this week, starting this week is free.
It's starting this week, and the next 2 weeks is when we would like to have meetings with you all individually. I believe you'll be pleased with the direction we're moving on the town's economic development initiatives, and I don't want to say too much, or I'll hear from Director Shelton later this evening saying it wasn't ready for that to be public. But there's a variety of things that he's working on with the town standing up more of a presence, both an online presence, and this ties into what you were saying about community development, programming the space in town hall. So we are getting close. I know it's a point of frustration for all of us. That it's taken as long as it has, but we are getting close on that. And Ms. Barnes has been working with different departments about programming the space, bringing the community groups back. We used to have the ESL classes in town hall. There's a lot on our list to bring back as soon as we get these doors open.
That's great.
And I think that y'all will be pleased when Director Shelton's ready here probably in December to announce some initiatives that his operation is taking in terms of standing up the town's electric or online platform. I appreciate that the business organization or other groups that they have desires to do things as well. I get a little bit concerned about bandwidth. And so I do think that it's most appropriate for the town to stand up things so that there's continuity there. But if you have examples of different groups, I would ask that you email those to us.
Sure.
In a former life, I was a director of community and economic development, so I'd be interested in the examples that you have.
Sure, we'll do. And I think I'll definitely schedule some time with you. I'll set up some time. And there's a lady who I think is part of the Bikram Yoga Studio, and does this sort of like on her side and had a presentation. So it might be a worthwhile conversation to just kind of bring it together. I also sort of share the same concern. I'm like, if we do this and we do it well, that's the standard. And like whoever steps up and says we're going to do this has to be able to deliver this. And it can't be something where the minute it gets out of date, people will immediately drop it and you lose all credibility. And the worst thing is to have floating websites or things that when you search Riverdale Park business or you search whatever in town, this should pop up. And if it's not done well, then it's just like we shouldn't have even done it. Like so I'd rather us not do it than do it poorly or do it in something that's not sustainable. So but we'll definitely set some time up. But I'm excited to learn about what Director Shelton's been cooking up. Want to taste.
And so we look forward to that. And I believe I met the person you're talking about from Big Room Yoga on Saturday at your event, or at the event. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. At the event, we talked briefly.
Great.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking, and perhaps your reference to Director Sheldon's project is an example of this, but I'm wondering, you guys on the staff are, of course, the practitioners on this stuff. I spend, I feel like most of my day at the office, which is in DC, and for you guys, even if you don't live in town, the office is here in our town, which is to say you see it more of the day than we do. And as practitioners, just seeing what other towns are doing with this kind of community development stuff. How are we getting as a council, like, your out of the box creative saw something somewhere else that's being done really well? It'd be cool if we did that. Is that sort of part of the budget process already? An example of what from what Director Shelton's going to talk about in December, hopefully. I just want to make sure that if there doesn't exist a forum for that already, that maybe we put it on an agenda for a work session or something in the future to make sure that we're getting the cool stuff that you guys see and the needs that you see being in town every day.
So the short answer is that's part of our process. But we also look at our bandwidth. We look at available resources, and then I ultimately make a decision what it is that we can afford. No, the leadership team, and then through their staff, we get ideas from everyone. We have an all staff meeting every Tuesday. Realistically, I will say 3 Tuesdays a month, because occasionally we have to reschedule.
I won't check up on you, don't worry.
Well, no, I just want to be very transparent.
I understood. Thank you.
But every meeting from I will say September through the budget development process, they hear this message. Let me know what it is we should fund. Let me know what it is we should not fund. Let me know what you've seen in other jurisdictions that works. What should we be doing different? And we have discussions about that. But they hear that from me every time we meet. And that's just from me. And then the department heads, when they meet with their staffs, they're asking the same things. So the new initiatives and things that we roll out, they're not things that are coming out of my head. They're things that are coming from the staff.
Outstanding. Just wanted to make sure that there was a venue for that, and it sounds like it's going through appropriate channels, that people are giving the best ideas, and the ones that we can throw money at get up to us at the council. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional council or public comments on budget priorities?
The last thing I would say, Mr. Mayor, is that we've heard from Councilmember Lingua, desire to meet, and from Councilmember Inyang. We'll have Mr. Jones reach out to the two of you this week to get something scheduled. If anyone else would like to meet with us, you as an individual council member, with the finance team and myself, just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Appreciate it. Okay, that's the last numbered item on our agenda. Are there any items of new business?
Point of order.
Yes.
Of an item of unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, then please go ahead.
Just wanted to see if we had received any response and follow up again, if not, on the question I had for Congressman Ivey in our last session, where we were his staff member, who was very gracious and kind in his presence, and thank him for that, mentioned that he could confirm that the congressman had received the letter in question, the statement or resolution we passed on the Gaza ceasefire, that he had received it, but could not confirm that he had read it, which seemed like not too much to ask, just a confirmation that he had in fact read the letter. I was wondering if we received any response on that.
Mr. Mayor, I can say that the town staff have not received any correspondence.
I have not either. But give me 1 second to search. I was out of commission for several days. Not from Mr. Sweet.
I could take an answer after the meeting over email or whatever. I don't want to hold us up, but just if we haven't,
I have
appreciate continuing to follow up with the congressman's office.
I have not received a response to that. I received a nice letter from Congressman Ivey on another topic, but not on that. So
good to hear. Glad he's keeping tabs on our community, and I certainly always appreciate everything he does for the district and us, particularly here in town. But would just like to continue to follow up on the question of if he has in fact read our letter.
Okay. Very good. Any additional items of unfinished business before moving off? Any items of new business? Okay, let's call it a night. Thank you all. Appreciate the discussions and the interesting items brought up. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.